Hi, my name's Megan. I'm a therapist and coach, and you're listening to Career Congregation Podcast. After spending hundreds of hours working with clients, one thing I noticed that so many people have in common is just how many people truly don't enjoy their work, or worse, hate what they do every day. I created this podcast to help people start to make changes in their everyday life so they too can find work they love. Every week, I speak with people who've made changes, taken risks, or built careers in ways that feel meaningful to them. These conversations are here to offer real-life inspiration, perspective, stories, and practical ideas you can apply in your own life. Thank you, and enjoy. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Career Congregation. I am joined this week by Jeff Shafritz, who is a strategic franchise advisor. Welcome, Jeff. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, Megan. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited.
Yeah, no worries. So Jeff and I were connected actually a few months ago, and we had a really engaging intro call conversation, and we have definitely some overlapping passion of helping people sort of find work that is like fulfilling for them and more aligned and helps people sort of step into their own power. So, Jeff, where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining us from Detroit, Michigan, in the U.S. So not as warm as I was hoping for this time of year.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy weather there, right? Don't you guys get some pretty brutal winters?
Well, winter's brutal, but it's the fact that it lasts 2 or 3 extra months than it's supposed to. That's the frustrating part. So if it ended in February or March, it wouldn't be so bad, but it keeps going. So,
Yeah. I mean, I've been spending a lot of time in Ireland myself, and people are still wearing big winter puffy coats there, and it's like it rains a lot. So you have my understandings with that
I
for sure.
appreciate that. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
definitely. So, when you first discovered Career Congregation, and you were sort of looking at the work that you do and understanding sort of that, with Career Congregation, really it's all about helping people step into alignment in their careers and get out of work that is not lighting them up or not fulfilling or not profitable. How does what you do day to day align with that?
I would say that when I found it, I was excited because it's the perfect fit. Uh, Even though my role is helping people find franchises, and I'll get into that in a little later, what I'm really doing is helping people evaluate the best ways to change their situation. So a lot of people I work with are in the corporate world, unsatisfied with their career, trying to figure out what their next move could be. And that's why I love what I do. I help change people's lives. So.
Yeah, exactly. That really came out when we had our like initial intro chat. So I was excited about that. With your early career, so like, can you tell us a bit about like your early influences and sort of cultural background, early days, upbringing, and then how that led you into the work that you do?
Sure. It's a story. I don't know how interesting it is, but I had a great upbringing. So I had a really nice family life, and that was fantastic. I went to college, and I was a huge sports nut, and I really wanted to do something in the world of sports. So I had an internship at the arena in where I went to school. I went to the University of Maryland, so it's right near Washington, D.C. And I had an internship, and I sold season basketball tickets to Georgetown Hoyas who played there, and I sold them to an Athlete's Foot franchisee. And
Hmm.
I was moving to Atlanta with a bunch of friends after college. It was the place to go back then after you graduated. And they Athlete's Foot said franchisee said, "Hey, we've got an office there. You should give them a call and check it out." So I went. I met with them. I actually interviewed. I thought I'd be selling franchises to athletes the
Hmm.
whole time, and that was not the case. But I learned franchising, and I realized how much I loved it. And so that's my whole career has been in franchising, really.
Yeah, well, I think that's such a good example of like following the breadcrumbs of our interests as well. Because when I'm working with people who feel like I don't know what I want to do, whatever, I'm like, like you like the things you like for a reason. Just do more of that and see where
Yeah,
it takes you. Like because so many people, especially when they come out of university, they're like, I have no idea what I want to do, and it's like, cool. What do you like? What are you good at? Start doing that and see where it takes you. Right?
exactly. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. And frankly, I would have been miserable probably in sports. And I realized that your passion and what you love outside of work might not be such a great fit for what you want to do every day at work.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and I also find sometimes you're like the biggest passion, the thing that you're the most passionate about, when you try to make that your career, it can kill your passion for it. I actually touched on that in one of my recordings last week, and um, both me and my guest had both had passions in sort of like fitness. So I was a yoga instructor and she was a fitness instructor, and you can only it has an expiration date, right? And it kind of, yeah, and it's like, where am I going to take this? So,
It,
yeah.
it, exactly. And then, I get a lot of people. I couldn't agree with you more. And by the way, I'm
Uh-huh.
smiling because that's a conversation I have with people all the time.
Hmm.
Uh, People love golf and they want to open a golf store or something in golf. And my question's always, when do you golf? Well, I like to golf after work and I like to golf on the weekends, and that's when my friends are available. When do you think you'd be working at your golf store?
Yeah.
That's when it's the busiest. And so you're going to be able to golf whenever you want during the middle of the day when no one else can golf with you, but on the weekends and the evenings, you're not going
You're
to be
going to
able
be
to do that.
working.
You got to run your business. So sometimes
Yeah.
the things you love to do don't coincide with what you would have, what the characteristics of the business would be, and that's really the most important thing: is what are the characteristics, and does it match what you like doing from a business standpoint, more so from a industry standpoint, I think.
Yeah, and I think also something like golf, and then for me it was yoga, and then my friend who recorded with me, she was a fitness instructor. These are things that we do for like mental health, right? And like inner peace. So if you make that into your career, then what are you doing to calm down from that? Right, if you
Sure.
remove that piece. And I mean, I remember when I was leaving my yoga instruction, I was like, I don't get to do yoga anymore, and I was really frustrated with the people that I was teaching, because some of them I was like, you suck. Like, you're bad. Like, it
That's
was really
funny.
frustrating for me,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. You couldn't just walk out on them like you could if
No.
you were the student in the class.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly.
I'm sorry. You're terrible. I'm out. I'm not teaching anymore.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
took it took a bit of like reevaluation for me to get to the point where I realized, like, oh, like I'm really interested in like therapy and coaching and helping to guide people, and like that was something that it energized me, and had a realistic career path, and I could monetize it, and it made sense, right? So there's all these elements that you have to look at. So when you stepped into the like the world of franchises, what did that look like from career experience that you'd had before, and then you started doing it and you were like, oh wow, this is actually like, this is my thing? How did that moment look for you?
Well, it was first of all, it's so long ago. I'm getting
Hmm.
up there in years, but uh, I realized the first few years I was doing it that it wasn't about a widget that I was selling. It wasn't a transaction. It was people that were really looking to change their lives for the better and figure out the best course to get there.
Hmm.
And coming out of college, that's kind of hard to figure any of that out at first. But the more I got into it, the longer I stayed. And I stayed at the Athlete's Foot for about 8.5, 9 years. And I realized the impact that I was able to have on people's lives. And I actually, when I left the Athlete's Foot, I decided that I didn't really want to just sell one franchise. I want because if the territory was sold or
Yeah.
if they weren't a good fit or they didn't have the financial resources to open it, I would just say thanks, but we can't do anything. And so what I do now, I work with hundreds of different franchises, and so
Hmm.
I look at myself more as a not a salesperson of a concept, but as a guide, a coach, an advisor who is figuring out if this is a path that makes sense for you in your current situation, and
Hmm.
then B, if so, what is the best opportunity for you? So I'm not just selling one franchise. I'm not selling anything. I'm selling my process for this is how we find you franchises, and this is how you investigate franchises to make an educated and informed decision. So it really, it really opened up a lot more for me. And quite frankly, at first it was challenging for the first 6 months
Yeah.
or a year. So
Yeah. It sounds actually, it's a lot like kind of being like a investment um, advisor, right? Like when you go to someone because you want to get some stocks or some shares, you need to speak to a financial advisor. And it's very much with you working with hundreds of different franchises now. It's like you're diversifying your portfolio, right? So you know what's hot and what's not.
exactly. And so it's twofold. It's not only what's a good opportunity, because obviously everybody wants a good opportunity, but it's which good opportunity is right for you and your specific situation. There are a lot of businesses that if you ran it, you would be successful. If I ran it, I fail
Yeah.
miserably. So, and you get the same stuff. You get the same system, the same training, the same
Hmm.
tools, but we're all different and we all excel at different things and we're all looking to reach different goals. And success means something different to one person versus another person. And so you have to take all those things into account when you're trying to find the right fits for an individual who's looking to make a change.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you find that actually um, the person's like personal interests make a huge difference in the franchises that they take on? In the example of like you loved sports, so you started with Foot Locker. Would you say that that's the first sort of point of interest with matching someone with a franchise, or like what does that process look like for you?
I take that into account, but that's really not the main thing. What I want to
Hmm.
find out is what they want to do every morning when they wake up, what their strengths are, what they want their role in the business to be. So there are a lot of great businesses that are dirty businesses, but I would argue that what your role would be and your lifestyle is a lot better than a business that sounds, phenomenal. So my goal is to really try to figure out what they want to do every day. And sometimes it's in the right, industry. And I don't want you to hate the industry, but sometimes it's something completely different than you would ever think. I've put people in a lot of home services business, like an insulation business, uh, uh, some kind of a restoration or cleaning business.
Hmm.
And those businesses will give the person everything they want, but
Yeah,
I guarantee you they weren't waking up in the morning saying, "Oh, if I could get into an insulation business, my
completely.
life would
Yeah.
be perfect." So
Yeah, that's actually like I think that that makes so many really interesting points. It's like defining what you want your day to look like, and then understanding and realizing the potential that these different opportunities have for providing that lifestyle for you. So what does the journey look like when people work with you?
So what happens is normally they'll come to me, somebody referred them to me, and they're one of two types of people. There's somebody that's ready to leave the corporate world and do something full time and run a business. But
Yeah.
there's others that can't do that, that, they have a family or they have to make a certain amount of money or they can't live. And so they can't walk away from their job. But they have some flexibility, and there are a lot of opportunities that can also be manager run from the start, where you could keep your job and your role is more managing the managers and building the culture and handling the administrative tasks. Don't get me wrong, you're not doing anything. It's not like a stock,
Okay.
but it is an opportunity that if you couldn't walk away from your job, you could do that to build it up to get to the point. So, and also with that, there's a lot of franchises that you can't do it that way. You would fail miserably if you tried to do it that way. So anyway, the journey starts with me trying to figure out what, are they keeping their job? Are they walking away from the job? Do they want to go down both paths? And we go through a consultation where I spend typically about 90 minutes with somebody asking a ton of questions so I can understand what their goals are. 3 years from now, if this business is successful, what's your life look like? And then I want to understand their motivations for making a change. There's always positive and negative motivation. I've found that negative motivation can get you to start looking, but if there's no positive motivation, then it's hard once you either get in or to make a decision to do it. So there's got to
Yeah.
be a positive motivation also. We talk about all the characteristics that are important to them. So numbers of employees, types of employees, who they want their customer to be, how they want to get their customer, hours, days of the week, etc. And then investment criteria, where their comfort level is and risk tolerance. And I take all this information, I package it up, and I build a model. And then I take that model and I go find franchises that fit exactly what they're looking for and have territory available where they live. So that's
Okay.
that's how I help match people to franchises.
I'm really sitting with what you said about the negative and positive motivation because I'm thinking about this from like a sort of like a neuroscience perspective as well. And there's so much. So like negative motivation would be kind of like fear, right? Like fear based, right? Which most of us can experience that and do experience that. And that's like, ooh, I have to go to work or I won't get paid, or like, oh, I won't be able to pay my bills. And
Exactly.
but that leaves people in a lack mentality is what I find a lot, because it's the fear-based stuff around work tends to fall back onto the scarcity mindset, and then it becomes like a negative not like self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's like a negative thought loop, right? And it's very
Yeah.
hard to escape from that. So it's really good that you can also help them realize what the positive motivations are, or that you identify, hey, you're only doing this from a place of negative motivation, you will not be successful.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
If you got downsized and you're 55 and you've been trying to get a job for a year and you really want a job and then you realize you can't, and the only reason you're even thinking about business ownership is because you can't get a job, then that's going to be as soon as the going gets tough, you're going to struggle a lot. So I
Mm,
like to see something in there that they're trying to attain something just as much as they're
mhm.
trying to run away from something, basically.
Yeah. So how do people like find you? How do they know about you? Because it's in a way it's like being a career advisor, right? Like where someone goes when they're ready for a change and they want to do like have a different lifestyle or a different job, but it's also very specific. So how does someone get connected with you other than listening to this podcast, of course?
I'm hoping this podcast. Yeah. But I've been doing it for a long time, so I get a
Uh,
ton of referrals, and
yeah.
that's the majority of my business from either people I know or people who I've placed or work with. They'll refer their friends. There are some sources you can buy leads from, but those are terrible, and you kind of still do it a
Yeah.
little bit, but it's the referrals are really the core of the business. So
Yeah, the buying of the leads, I think that's across all industries is never as good as like an authentic, genuine word of mouth, organic lead. It's always so much better. So, yeah.
you always want somebody coming to you versus you trying to go to them. So
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, on your own personal career journey, then, and like life journey, well, first of all, you keep saying that you've been doing this for a really long time. How long have you been doing this?
so I've been in franchising for 34 years,
Wow, that's
33
amazing.
years, 33 years.
Yeah.
I've been a franchise consultant for over 20 years.
Okay.
I think 24 years. And so this has been my whole career, basically.
Yeah. So you really are like the godfather of franchises.
I might be. I think it's Ray Kroc, but after Ray Kroc, it would be me, I would think. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Like really impressive. Just like hats off to you, right?
Yeah,
Does it
thank you. I mean, it's been great. I'll tell you, it, the whole thing was weird because again, we mentioned this is not what I had in mind when I started, but it's been a really fulfilling and it's been a great way to raise a family because I'm self-employed like you are. I can travel when I want. I can work whenever I want, and I never, my children are grown now, but I never missed an event.
Yeah.
I would just say, I'm sorry, I can't. At 3 o'clock, I got another appointment, and then go run off to the elementary school or middle school or high school and do what I need to do. So, um, I I actually think that's from a career standpoint, since I know a lot of people are looking at a career
Change.
maybe change
Mhm.
or want to go on a different journey. It's not easy, business ownership. You're going to work really hard,
Yeah,
especially early on.
all the time.
But you can build it to a point where you have people in place doing things for you, and you can control your schedule and you can control your time. And when you start getting a little older, you realize everything's not just about making as much money as you can. You want to have the flexibility and time to do the things that are important to you. So
Yeah, it's one of the things that I do with clients when they are, wanting to shift and change, and it's like as you said, where do you see yourself in however many years, whatever. But like what is the perfect day? And I have them define what their definition of success is, right? Because for some people it might be, $10 million, partner at some financial institution, whatever. And that's fine. That's what success looks like for them. But it sounds like for you, and also definitely for me, it's like freedom, right? Well, I'm not time rich because I work all the time, but I
right,
am in control of my time. And I can,
exactly.
if there's a day where I don't want to work, or if it's, my sister's birthday, or my nephew wants to spend the day with me, whatever, I'll just block it off on my calendar and I'm just not available that day, and I can do
Yeah.
that.
I mean, control of time. Well, it's interesting that you said that because one of the things when you're going through businesses with people, everybody, different businesses can provide different outcomes. So if I always use an example like if you wanted to if open a this new burger place that was open late night and they have great burgers and everybody goes and you make a lot of money it sounds good, except for the fact that you're going to have to be there on the weekends, on the evenings, because that's when it's the busiest. And so your time is lost. And if someone just said to me, I want something that's Monday through Friday only, but I want a burger restaurant, that it just doesn't make sense. But that's not how people think about it. It's when they're going into it, they see something that's interesting and they say, oh, I should get into that business. And then they don't realize everything that comes along with it. So,
Yeah. I mean, hospitality in particular, it's you work when everyone else has time off. And I think that's the cruelest part of hospitality is all the holidays and weekends, like you have to go to work.
it really is. I personally think it's the worst work-life balance. So there are some people it's in their blood, and I'm not going to say that the restaurant industry can't be good, and I wouldn't say that 15 years from now, if you have 20 locations, that you don't have more control of your schedule. But the fact of the matter is the amount of hours so that you can learn the business and be there is really,
Hard.
really challenging, and you're dealing with constant turnover. So it's one of these things that you usually need a bunch of them to make a lot of money. So what happens is the first 18 months, you're killing yourself. You're working harder than you did in the corporate world. You're learning the business, operating one unit, and you're making 30% of what you made in the corporate world to do it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't get to that next location.
Yeah.
And food is definitely a business that, unless you've been in the food business running restaurants or whatever, you need to be there full time to understand the business and learn it. So most people think franchising is a bunch of fast food restaurants, and there's so much more out there. And food is, to me, again, I put people in food, but food would be a horrible fit for me because of the work-life balance.
It's definitely tough. I mean, not from a franchise perspective, but I had a lot of experience in hospitality throughout university and, like living abroad, traveling and stuff. Worked in events, worked in wine, and then I did lots of like waitressing and worked in pubs and stuff when I was at university. Because it's fun, you're on your feet, whatever, but like the hours are brutal. Like, especially opening and closing is like, oh my God, it's so early in the morning or it's so late at night. And if you have to open, you've probably were there the night before as well. And you're just like so tired. It's really, really draining. And the staff turnover is so high because most people don't do it. It's only the very top level people that it's like a life career for. And most people, it's like very transitional, right? And it's like you're a student or you're, between things. And so the turnover's high. It is a tough industry for sure.
Yeah. I agree. And, as long as you know what you're getting into, if you're comfortable with that, it can be good. But I know you mentioned fitness earlier.
Yeah, that's a tough one too.
Not right. Well, it is, but the difference when you look at this from a storefront standpoint, when you look at businesses like health and wellness, fitness, some of the medical type of franchises that are out there, women's beauty services, men's beauty services and haircuts, like those businesses, the difference is you still have employee issues, but you're not dealing with a bunch of high school, college kids and minimum wage employees.
Yeah.
You're dealing with people that are either really passionate about what they do. So you went on to become an instructor and, or you work out all the time and you want to become an instructor. Or B, they've got some schooling or licensing. So they went to an esthetician school.
You have to have some sort of a qualification to enter that industry. Yeah.
So you're making it a career, and it becomes a little easier to manage that than it does, just your basic retail or, a fast food, type location.
Yeah. And I would say also with hospitality, one of the other things that's tricky is alcohol. Just like, I mean, from the time that I worked in wine and in pubs, there's obviously people that are drawn to it that enjoy consuming it. And it's a fine line between like professionalism and like, too many late nights. I've definitely witnessed managers really struggle to keep, especially young staff, right? Like university age people working in bars. That's
Yeah,
hard.
that is hard.
That's a
And by
tough
the
one.
way, it sounds great when you're in college or even getting out of college, until you turn, 30, and all of a
Uh,
sudden you're like,
yeah,
wait
I
a
think
second,
by 25, you're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore.
I can't go out this late and then get up the next day. How am I supposed to do this? So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So with the franchises then, what would you say, so what would you say are the best like overall that you think are like the most, I know it's different for every person, but like which ones do you see the most success with and the ones that you see the least success with overall, would you say?
That's an interesting question. And it's funny because it really does depend
On
on
the
the
person.
person.
Yeah.
There's good brands and there's bad brands. There's no question.
Yeah.
So you want to get a good brand, but there are so many different options. So for argument's sakes, a lot of people come out of the corporate world and they like the idea of a B2B, maybe consulting franchise, coaching, expense reduction, management consulting, recruit staffing, and there are great franchises that do that. But you have to understand that if you're my age and you just came out of an executive level job and you've got all this knowledge, you still have to get the business in that type of a business. So you have to go backwards and go, am I willing to get up every day and network and sell? And because the business isn't about what you're doing at the beginning, the business is about getting clients.
Mm-hmm.
So so I bring that point up because a B2B business can be great for some people, but it can be miserable for somebody who is very good at a task, but not good at business development because you won't have any customers. And you can't afford to pay a high end B2B salesperson when you're just starting your business. So that person
Yeah.
needs to be you. Businesses that I love, right? I love home services because I
Okay.
think they need to be
Yeah.
done. Most of the
Like
business,
what, like Home Depot?
well, that's more of a storefront. I'm talking more like an insulation franchise, a
Okay.
pool a maintenance franchise, a roofing company,
Hmm.
and what what the franchise brings is systems and technology and everything. And what the franchise owner brings is leadership skills, all the things that you would get out of corporate America.
Hmm.
And those can be B2B as well, but marketing makes the phones ring. So you can market, customers call you, you go give an estimate or send somebody to give an estimate, you have crews and trucks, and you can expand with people versus spending 500 grand every time you want to open a new restaurant or new storefront business. So I like those businesses because they're white collar individuals for a lot of it,
Yeah.
in a blue collar business where a lot of businesses don't have all of those systems and technology, and the individual is not the one swinging the hammer. So so that's one I like. I like senior care a lot. We're aging as a population.
Yeah.
There's different things in senior care. There's some really good lower investment, lower overhead, like home services, assisted living placement services, mobility services. So there's some interesting things that fall into that. I like businesses in health and wellness and fitness. I love the fitness
Hmm.
world, and I owned a fitness franchise. It can be a great model and it can be a bad model. You got to know when to get in and when to get out, but I think it can be a great business. Um, I do like business to business businesses for the right people, and there's both blue collar and white collar on those. but the right person needs to be somebody who's not afraid to go get the business. And I, I like pet businesses and children's businesses. So I say this, it doesn't matter what the economy is. You're always going to spend money on your pets, your parents, and your kids. And,
Yeah. Well, when
and
you said senior care, I was going to say that's guaranteed business, right? Like, yeah.
I mean, you got to help, right? You're going to help your parents, no matter what. And we're aging so dramatically as a society. So
Hmm. Have you seen a side note, but did you see the movie I Care a Lot?
I don't think
No?
so.
Oh, it's okay. Well, we won't get into it here, but you should watch it. It's about like the business behind it, but there's obviously like a pretty intense story behind it, and it was pretty dark. But it's clearly a profitable industry.
Well, it's profitable, but I don't think you get into that unless you really want to help people. I mean, and you care about people.
Well, that's what you hope, right? Like that in
That's
the
what you hope.
movie, that's what they say. They're always like, I care a lot, but it's like they're like taking people's life savings. This is really unethical. But
Yeah, well, first of all, there's just like anything, there's good people, there's bad people.
mhm.
Um, from a franchise standpoint, though, I think if you're going to get into that business, going into it, you have to be authentic or you're not really going to grow the business. There are some people that
Yeah.
look at it and say, yeah, I want something that I can make a lot of money. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's, if you're doing a good job and really helping people. But if you're in the like a major corporation, there's no face anymore. It becomes a
Mhm.
publicly traded company, and so I think and I don't know who was in the movie or what was in the movie, but I think sometimes that's a little different than somebody who is looking to make a career change and knows they're going to have to wake up every day and go talk to seniors and children of seniors and things of that nature. Usually that it's something that they're, you know, passionate about helping people. So,
Yeah, I like what you said about they have to be authentic in it, otherwise they won't succeed. And I think that also goes back to the negative and positive motivations, right? It's like getting to the core motivation of why they're doing it. So, yeah, they have to have some passion behind why they're doing it, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I do a exercise when I'm doing my consultation,
Hmm.
uh, and I basically say, hey, you've got 10 coins, and you've got three categories. I want to see how you're going to spend these coins. One is how much money you can make.
That's a good
So
one.
the business is
I do a
just
money
about,
spending one too, but I like this
yeah.
question. Yeah.
Two is so you don't care about anything but money in this scenario. Two is um, how much passion you have for your role or the business. Because I'm going to ask the questions. If somebody says, I don't care what you tell me, I want to have a business that deals with whatever, I'm gonna work with them to find it, but I'll give them the pros and cons. But more importantly, I try to figure out what they're passionate about doing every day. Kind of the question you ask about what is an ideal day, and then the third is your work-life balance. And
Mhm.
and then some people will say, well, it depends how much money and how much this. And I said, what do you need to be happy and successful? And let's say somebody says 150 grand is what I need, and I'd be happy and successful with that. Okay, let's start it from 150 grand then. You can
Mhm.
make 300 grand and you're going to work weekends and evenings, and you might not love it, or you can make 150 grand and you have a Monday through Friday schedule, and you love it. Which one are you going to choose, basically? And it's all across the board, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
There's so many people that what's important to them is so many different things. So
Yeah, I have a long list of questions that I go through with people, like from a like passion finding thing, and to help people sort of go like identify their I call them internal compass points, but I'm trying to find a better word for it because I think that's too wordy. But just like the things that guide you, right? Like so you know what your real pillars are, right? And the answers are so wildly different. It's so different. Like things that they enjoyed doing when they were children. One of the questions that I love asking is like, if someone stole your phone, like what would they learn about you? And people are like, oh, I get a lot of.
That's a great question.
Yeah, but it's like, your screenshots and like the social posts that you save and like videos and blogs or whatever, podcasts that you've saved to watch or listen to. It says a lot about your interest. Like when people are like, I don't know, I don't like anything. And I'm like, without being a perv, like what are the last 10 pictures on your camera roll,
Right. You might not want to know the answer to some of
Well,
them.
and I have had people say, "Is it okay if I talk about porn in here?" And I'm like, "Oh my god."
Oh yes, feel free. You're open.
Yeah.
No,
So
exactly. No, I did not mean that. That's
yeah.
it's funny because I ask questions about like more does the status of a business matter to you?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
people are like,
Yeah, that's a
wow,
big one actually.
it's big, but they're not thinking how I'm thinking. They're like, well, I don't know if I want a porn shop, but maybe if no, they don't franchise those. I'm not talking about like a drug dealer
Uh-huh.
or
Well, and then now, do you have cannabis? Has that one come up?
um, so it's interesting because I don't know if there's a cannabis franchise yet
Oh,
because it's
interesting.
not legal federally.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know that you can put your money in the bank and do all kinds of things. Franchising is governed by the Federal Trade Commission. I might be off on this. I don't know for
Okay.
sure, but
Yeah, just because it's legal in a fair few places now, and like, yeah, there's lots of shops for it. Like in California, it's like all over the place. And then my brother lives in Colorado, and definitely got a presence in Denver. I can tell you that much. Like,
I mean, it's in Michigan.
is it legal in Michigan too?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fully legal. And it's crazy. This little town where people go near where I live, it's a mile long strip, maybe not even a mile with different like retail and you can walk it. There's four pot stores right
Hmm.
after each other. And I'm thinking, do we really need four? Like something's got to give, right?
All these like young people that got so excited when it became legalized. They all wanted their own store.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like overkill considering you can buy as much as you want whenever you want. So but I'm sure that'll sort its way out. And I by no means want to get into a debate on marijuana,
Yeah.
whether it's good or bad or what have you. There's
Yeah.
I
But
could
so
I could
so it hasn't made it into the franchise world yet.
not to my knowledge, it has not made it to the franchise world.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so what are some of the most like obscure ones? Are there like sex shops ones?
Um, Not to my knowledge.
Uh,
I
I'm
so
for sure there'll be like lingerie.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't. There's weird ones that are really can be really good. Like
Uh-huh.
there's a couple dog poop scooping franchises that it's
Yeah.
really hard to introduce it to somebody. But if somebody wants a simple business that anyone could do, and
Yeah.
and the technology's there, and the routing is there, and the bit, and it's all marketing driven, it really it's not a bad business.
Yeah, well,
Um,
and a lot of people have dogs and someone's got to clean that shit up.
Someone's
So,
got to scoop the poop. So,
yeah.
but there's always things that I find interesting. Eyelash extension franchises
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
all kinds of different niche oriented things. But if they do have the things that deal with like drugs, crime,
Mhm.
porn. I try to stay.
Crime.
I, I try to stay away from them.
Fair. Fair.
So, but when I say status, I mean circling back, how glamorous it is. would you want a septic tank business or a dog poop picking up franchise?
Hmm.
Would you be comfortable telling your friends that, or your family if it met all the other criteria? And some people can't. I mean, and that's fine. Like I say, I'm not judging, which is nice. Just
Yeah.
I
Well,
need to
and
know.
so from a therapy perspective, again, that's where it's like ego comes into play, right? And for a lot of people, when I ask these questions of like, what lights you up? What do you want to do? Like, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes we have to review the answers. And it's like, is this really what you want? Or is this your ego? Like, because this sounds like this is what you think you should want, you know? And I actually have had to caveat in some of them, like, if you had an unlimited credit card for the day, what would you do? And I've had to now add, you are not a billionaire buying a yacht with and hanging out with supermodels because, like,
Yeah.
that's probably not what lit you up inside and brought you joy when you were 5 years old. Like you weren't thinking about those things. Those are results of like societal conditioning, and they can really overshadow like the choices that we make for ourselves in our adult lives. So it's like if you've done the work on yourself and you're like your ego is not getting in the way and what you're looking for is safety and security, and you could have a really profitable poop scoop company,
Right.
then like that could be a really good choice for you, you know? And like who cares what your best friend thinks?
E-
Like
e-
whatever.
Exactly. And I agree with you 100%. But, if you do care about and it's going to
I
kill
mean that
you.
would be I think even I would be like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, there's some dirty businesses out there that do really well and you're not doing the work. But there's, a biohazard cleanup. That cleans up crime scenes and
Well, that's
meth
a TV
labs.
show, right?
Huh?
Like there was a show on Netflix about, oh God, what was it called? Netflix did a series on that. It was like fictional. It was some women that were, you know, like down and out and, you know, really broke. And then they did one cleaning job of, it was like a crime scene. And they
Yeah.
got, you know, a couple grand in cash. And they were like, oh my God. And they made it into a business. Now they're really successful. I mean, it was a fictional show, but I remember watching it thinking,
Not
maybe I
bad.
should do that.
This franchise, and I kind of, I introduced it one time. It was actually pretty funny. This lady I was working with wanted to get out of the corporate world, and I think her spouse was either a police officer or a fireman,
Mm.
and it was just the perfect in for
Yeah.
introduction to
She knew
everything.
where all the dirtiest murders were.
Exactly. Plus, he had a flexible schedule, so he could help out. And she really wanted to do the business, but her husband was like, "No, we're not, we're not doing that. I don't want you around all of that stuff, basically." So,
Hmm.
um, but it was just interesting because that's another thing is bring your spouse along early on in the process because you you don't want to do something to them, you want to do something with them. And a lot of
Yeah.
times people don't want to bring their spouse on the process with me. And sometimes I allow it to happen even after 30 years. And when I do, it always gets to the end and usually it becomes an issue at the end. But if you are going
Yeah.
through the process together, both spouses are getting all their questions answered and going through it. And a lot of times the spouse who wasn't looking for a business ends up liking it more, being more enthusiastic even about it. So,
Yeah.
um, but that is an interesting business. I thought about that. I was like, wow, I mean, someone's got to do that stuff, and no one wants
Yeah.
to do that stuff.
No one
So,
wants to do that stuff. I think also another one that comes to mind is like plumbing. That's like, because it's kind of like dirty, right? Like it's like unclogging toilets and block drains and stuff, but like guaranteed business and it pays really well, especially if it's like, you know, 2 a.m. on a Saturday and the toilet bursts or whatever. Like that's good money. So,
emergency services, yeah. Um, it, it, So there's plumbing franchises. There's even whittle it down to just drain cleaning that you don't even need plumbers. And they work with plumbers who don't want to take that job because that doesn't pay enough. Right. And so the whole thing about a franchise that's interesting is usually if you wanted to start a drain cleaning business or a plumbing business, you're going to be a plumber. And then you're going to try to grow it and see if you can bring in somebody under you. But you're not a business person yet. I'm not saying you're not capable of being a business person, but you're a plumber. And maybe you did it by yourself for a little while. Maybe you work for somebody and you're going to go off on your own. But you need to figure out how to market, who to market to, what technology to use, what CRM system to have, all these, how to brand yourself, all these different things. And that's where a franchise brings that to the table. And that's why I like it for those blue collar industries so much.
Yeah.
Because your role is really hiring those people to do the work and overseeing it and leading it and marketing and all of those types of things.
So, well, I wanted to then switch a bit and look at your life journey, because what I like to really jump into with everyone, if there is a relevant sort of hurdle to be looked at, especially given that you've been in this industry for so long, would you say that you can think of like a really significant rock bottom moment that either really solidified your career choice or sort of redirected you in your career?
I've had a few personal moments that redirected my career. So I'd said I was with the athlete's foot for a long time. I took my boss's job. I was relatively young and was in charge of franchise development for the Americas. And they let me move to, my wife's from Michigan. So we moved we moved here to be near her family when we were about to have our first child. And the athlete's foot let me move and basically run the division from my house, even though they didn't do that back then. There was no remote, right? So I decided though to leave. My old boss hired me to help build a franchise division of a publicly traded company. And September 11th happened. I was there for maybe 6, 9 months. They downsized the whole franchise division. I had moved to Michigan. I didn't have any contacts and there was no remote work. So I couldn't just go get a remote franchise, development job. And I had to figure out what I wanted to do quickly because I just bought a house. My wife wasn't working. I had a baby, and
Oh God, that's
that
perfect
was
storm.
really tough. So I know what it's like to go through, and I've got a few lessons on things too that I give to people, so they do things ahead of time. But that's how I got into FranChoice, though. If that didn't happen, and franchise consulting, and so if that didn't happen, then I never would have had this, probably. And it's been fantastic. So those things lead, but that was a pretty low moment because I had no idea what I was going to do, basically.
Yeah. How was it that in that like low point though, how did this present to you? Like how, when you said like, that's how I got into it, like what was that first sort of like, hey, why don't you try this? Like what did that look like?
Yeah. So I had been doing some other types of consulting, like helping small franchise companies, sell. Um, and I'd interviewed for a couple of jobs, but there's only so many companies that did that here in Michigan. And, and so I was just researching like all the types of opportunities I could do in Detroit because I knew I wasn't moving in franchising or making a career change. And so I think I probably started 2002, like late April. So I probably from September 11th to 2002 was just hanging on, trying to do consulting, making a
Yeah.
little money here or there, figuring out what was out there. And I found FranChoice. I don't remember who told me about it.
Okay.
Um, and so FranChoice is the name of our parent company.
Okay.
We have about 100 people around the country who do what we do. We're all independent contractors, and I'm an equity partner now in FranChoice as well.
Okay.
But we all operate our business individually. So I call myself franchise guidance because you don't want somebody to go to FranChoice's website and there's 100 of us, and you didn't just market to yourself. But we're all good consultants, which is nice. We focus on people who are in the franchising world in some capacity or other. For the most part, there might be a few entrepreneurs that came in that weren't, but that's how I got into it, and never looked back,
No
basically.
looking back. I was literally about to say that when you said it. So.
Yeah, and then during this time, I bought a fitness franchise
Mhm.
that I had. It was a great experience for me. Um, I I had it for 5 years. I was about to renew my lease and buy some new equipment, and the parent company had just raised a bunch of money through venture capital, and they were buying some of the locations, and they made me a really good deal. So I exited. That's not a story I tell most people because that's not realistically ever going to happen. It just I got lucky on that one.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
that worked out really well. So I got that experience becoming a franchisee also, not just
Yeah.
selling or consulting to help people. And and then I had another kind of smooth sailing, family, everybody, everything's great until the pandemic. And
Mm.
that was rough.
Yeah, that would be really rough. And
Yeah,
I mean, anything where that required like boots on the ground, right? Like was it's so interesting that you also touched on 9/11 because when we spoke about the pandemic before we started recording, I was thinking like 9/11 and the pandemic are the two things that, at least in our lived lifetimes, have changed the way we work and live so dramatically. Like
yeah,
from when I 9/11 happened when I graduated from high school. And when I go to back to my old school, which was like an international like boarding school in the UK. So it was a very unique experience. The head of security there, we had a reunion like a couple years ago, and he said he was like the last time I enjoyed my job was your year because after 9/11, because there was a lot of international kids that go to the school
yeah,
and he was like security became a fucking nightmare, like, and like he was like it's just it's we used to be able to like finish school, like walk down the street, go to the pub, like whatever, and
yeah,
like it's a gated campus now. Everyone has to swipe their security cards. That he has to track on the screen like where the kids are at all times. Like it's actually crazy. And then the next thing that really changed the way society just operates, obviously, was the pandemic, right? Like, what did remote working do to franchises?
So long term, it was great.
Yeah.
Um, Short term, it was not great because,
Mm,
everyone was scared. Nobody wanted to make a decision on what to do. Part of the pandemic I liked was that um, we live in a very tight-knit community, and my kids all have friends their exact ages, and we're great friends with their parents. We travel together in like packs. We'll go on vacation with, five couples and 15 kids or whatever,
mhm.
and it's just a lot of fun. So part of me loved the time because the kids were around all the time, and I was able to be with the kids. Work wise, it was very stressful. And then the hardest part, honestly, and I don't know, I don't want to go too deep in this, but my brother, older brother, was kind of my mentor and just great friend and everything. He had cancer and he passed away around that time. And it was just, everything was, hard, to move around and do stuff. I was able to go, see him and spend, a bunch of time with him. But, it just, if there
Yeah.
wasn't a pandemic, he might have been able to get a little bit, maybe not, maybe better care, or at least more convenient care, for.
Or for potentially had a bit more joy in his, end
Exactly.
final days, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah, that's
so
hard.
so all that kind of hit at a certain point, and I just my my youngest son at one point was like, Dad, because I wasn't even focused on work. I was just, my brother and I collected baseball cards when we were young, and I had taken all of our cards back from his house and was going through them, and my kids got into it as well, and we did stuff as a hobby. But my youngest one was, I think, a freshman in high school, or sophomore in high school at the time, and he was just like, Dad, yeah, you got to work. You can't just
Yeah.
look through baseball cards all day long. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I need my son to tell me that.
Yeah.
So that kind of snapped me back into it. And the good news is, from the pandemic, there are so many people working at home that a lot of people were able to do a franchise business and still do their job,
Yeah.
because they had a lot more flexibility. So those couple of years that kind of sucked ended up turning into several, great years.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I've
um,
heard some really amazing business pivot stories on this podcast of it was a sink or swim environment and people sank for a little, but then they were the ones that were able to tread water for long enough then had huge booms because they became resilient and they came up with new ideas, and then it was like amazing. It was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we didn't think about this before." Like so good.
it was such an interesting time because people who, I mean, good business owners went out of business too. So I don't want to say it. There were some
Hmm.
people that
Yeah.
literally couldn't open their business, and their landlords were forcing them to pay rent and, and do things. But what it did to a lot of companies, I remember talking to a few people at a company in particular. There's a company called Budget Blinds. It's a window covering franchise. It's mobile, and they're a great company. But the people who were below average or average, they all went away. But so did all of the other below average and average
Mm. Yeah.
competitors.
Yeah.
And so the people who were, a little bit above average, or good, they came out of the pandemic, just like you said. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
learned
it
how to,
totally was a population readjustment in the work world
yeah,
completely. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Got rid of all the competition.
exactly. And they got better because they had to get better during that time.
Hmm.
And then they had no competition. It was like a double whammy of opportunity for a lot of people. So
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Definitely. Yeah. The pandemic stories are just like, there's so many, so many. That should be like an entire podcast series in itself. Like everyone's got one, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was, yeah. I've got there are a lot of funny, good memories that came out of it as well. And I don't mean that in a way that the pandemic was good, but just having your kids at school, in their bedroom, right next to you the whole time,
Hmm.
and just being around you all the time, and creating a garage family room, in Michigan, where, when you wanted people to come over in the winter and have the garage door up, but still have to have like heat and other stuff, and sofas out there, and, and all kinds of stuff. But, and then I remember, just nobody knew at the beginning. And my wife had an autoimmune disease. So for the first 3 weeks, she had
Oh
to go
God.
to her parents' house. So I had to work and make all the, like I was making, all the food, cleaning the house, The kids weren't in school yet those first 3 weeks, so that they were waking up around 2, and I'd give them that was like breakfast, and they were staying up till 6, and I was like,
Mom's
"Mom's
not
not around.
here.
I'm going to actually make really good meals for them and do everything." But it was pretty funny. I just remember like getting groceries and washing all the
God, I remember
fruit.
that too.
I'm like
Yeah.
scrubbing
Oh my God, the
oranges with
paranoia was
alcohol. And
crazy.
yeah, it was unique. And then you look back on it, and it was tough, but a lot of quality time came out of it. Unfortunately, I think you're right. When you made a comment early on, I think a lot of the generation that went through that, there were a lot of problems. So,
Yeah, I definitely have worked with a lot of people whose school and it's particularly university or like final school years before going into university, which is, it's really like those are major rite of passage times in your life, and they missed some really big things and they are suffering from it now, and you can see that. Um, but yeah, kind of on that note, then looking back at your career and these, pretty major like rock bottom and like historical times that you've lived and worked through, what advice would you today give to yourself at what was one of your lowest points?
I would say things are going to work out. Don't stress so much. You'll figure it out. And keep moving forward. Basically, don't stop. And if you do the right things, everything seems to work for the best. And I think there were a lot of times during that time that I was unconfident in my situation and how things were going to play out and what was going to happen to me, what was going to happen to my family. And I could have put my focus elsewhere instead of worrying about all the negative things that could happen. So that's the advice. And now looking back now, I mean, looking at things, things worked out, and they typically do. So
Yeah, they
you
really
know,
do. As humans, we tend to err in the space of worst case scenario, but everything does work out. Even when it feels like it doesn't, it still does.
that's the reality of. I mean, be a good person, work your hardest, and or do your best, I should say, because maybe working hard, if you don't have to, that's great. But be a good person and do your best, and find what makes you happy to do, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be okay. And that's why I kind of love, that's kind of why I love what I do. Is I'm almost like a therapist, which is, I would assume,
Mm-hmm.
very fulfilling in helping people,
Mm-hmm.
except for, I'm helping people with businesses, but a lot of what I do is really more therapy than it is,
Yeah, well, to
helping
be
people.
successful, right, they need to have done the work on themselves, like, the mental work, mental and emotional, right? It will be a block for you in anything if you're not working through stuff. So,
A
yeah.
hundred percent.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. That was really good chats. We we went down all the
We
roads.
we did. I appreciate it. It was fun. Normally, I'm just talking about different kinds of franchises and
Yeah.
things like that. So I enjoyed it because this is
Yeah.
a lot more deep, and it was a lot of fun for me. So thank you very much for having me on, Megan.
Yeah, no worries. If people want to get some advice from you or work with you, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Well, there's two websites I'm going to give you. One is just my general website. It's www.franchiseguidance.com.
Okay.
And then there's a ton of information on franchising. You can get a hold of me. There's an ebook. Um, And then I did a website just for this podcast with some special kind of offers and things. It's podcast.franchiseguidance /cc. So podcast.franchiseguidance /cc. And I think there's like a
I'll put all of this in the show notes as well for anyone who's listening. So yeah.
perfect. And there's like a franchise survey and a franchise readiness quiz and a way to reach out to me and get in touch with me if you want.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you again one day in the future. I'm sure.
That's awesome. Thanks, Megan. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Career Congregation. I hope it gave you something to think about or inspired you in some way. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to like, subscribe, or share this episode with someone you think it might resonate with. Every bit of support helps. If you know someone who you think would make a great guest, please send them my way via the link in the show bio. And if you'd like to support the show and the work that I do, you can buy me a coffee via the coffee link also in the show bio. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week for another conversation about all things career.